Good morning, everyone. I'm Basil Hewitt with Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. Thank you for attending the SB 1383 Organics Diversion Workshop. We'll give it a couple of seconds to make sure everyone virtually files into this workshop and webinar. This morning with me, I have a number of folks that are going to help answer questions you may have. I have Genesis Rodriguez, also from the Sanitation Districts, that will be moderating the questions. We have Will Chen from the Sanitation Districts. Anything you'd ever want to know about food waste slurry delivered to our joint water pollution control plant, Will is your man. Habib Karat, who's in charge of our solid waste operations at the Sanitation District. He oversees our Point of Hills MRF and our Shoal Canyon facility, which beginning in January 1st, Shoal Canyon can take food waste mingled with green waste, provided the food waste is in a bag. We also have Jennifer King from Public Works. Anything you ever want to know about edible food waste recovery, which is an important component of SB 1383. We also have Eric Rodriguez, who will give you an overview of some of the reporting requirements for 1383. And we also have Kara Morgan from CalRecycle, the folks in charge of making sure this law is implemented as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. So first, we'll start out with about a 15-minute presentation, and then we'll take questions. So we're off and running. LA County generates about 21 million tons of waste per year. Of that 21 million tons, 9 million is buried in landfill. We've shown that we've come a long way in terms of resource recovery. Of that 9 million, about a third is organic waste. And that organic waste, when you characterize it further, is mainly food waste, wood waste, prunings, yard clippings, and the like. And this organic waste, the biggest component is food waste, and conservatively in LA County, we throw out at least 4,000 tons of food a day. That gives you an overview of what's in that organic waste. So what's the big deal? This organic waste, as most of you know, when it's disposed of in landfill, it can generate methane, release methane to the atmosphere. And methane is a greenhouse gas that's 84 times more potent than CO2. So it's one of the quickest things we can do to play our part in slowing and stopping global climate change is to remove organics from landfills. So the state passed a couple of laws. Both of these laws were passed in 2016, AB 1826, which requires mandatory commercial organics recycling for entities that produce more than 2 cubic yards of organic waste per week. And then SB 1383, again, passed in 2016, and the focus of today's webinar workshop. And the key points, the key North Stars in SB 1383 are, by 2020, there should be a 50% reduction in landfill organics. And then by 2025, a 75% reduction in landfill organics. And these are compared to 2014 level. And then another key goal is that of that food waste, the edible portion, at least 20% should be donated, should be rescued, should be recycled. So there's a tiered approach. If this food waste can be recycled, rescued, do that, and then diverting from landfill either to composting or anaerobic digestion. So we're all here to help. We have CalRecycle, the folks implementing the law, Public Works, who's trying to figure out how much capacity we have in the county, what our needs are, and then sanitation districts, where we have the capacity with existing infrastructure. We can leverage our existing infrastructure, such as our anaerobic digesters at our largest treatment plant or Point of Hills material recovery facility, to collect this organic waste and divert it from landfill. So with that, I want to turn it over to Arik. We'll talk a little bit about the county's role.
Thank you, Basil. Let's get this started here. So good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Rodriguez, civil engineer with LA County Public Works. I will briefly discuss the county's website that jurisdictions will utilize to submit their organic waste and edible food capacity data. I'll also share the county's upcoming plan to analyze the capacity at organic waste processing facilities throughout the Southern California region, as well as the results of the jurisdictional preparedness survey. The county has developed a new organic waste capacity planning website, which each jurisdiction will utilize to submit their organic waste and edible food disposal capacity data to the county. The website is intended to provide each jurisdiction the resources to meet the requirements with the regulations that relate to capacity planning under Article 11. The county officially notified jurisdictions that they have 120 days to submit their organic waste recycling and edible food recovery disposal and capacity data to Public Works. The data is due on April 8th, 2022. In order to successfully submit the data, each jurisdiction will need to designate a representative who will log into the website to upload and input the required data. We are requesting the name and email of that designated representative. Once the jurisdictions provide this information, we will send you a login and an email notifying that the login is ready to use, and they can begin submitting that data. Next slide, please. So the county, with the assistance of our consultant, will be administering a region-wide survey of approximately 600 planned and proposed organic waste processing facilities throughout the Southern California region. The facilities will include but not be limited to composting, anaerobic digestion, co-digestion, chipping and grinding, and paper recycling facilities. The survey is expected to commence in the next month, and we anticipate to be completed in June of this year. We plan on sharing the results of the survey with all of the jurisdictions in the county, with the hopes it will be of value if your jurisdiction is required to submit an implementation schedule for organic waste capacity. The facilities we're looking at will be located from all the way from Imperial and San Diego County to the Kearns and Kings County. Some of the questions we plan to ask is, do you currently accept or receive waste from the county? And do you plan to accept or receive waste from LA County jurisdictions? We will also ask operators to provide the following information based on their material types: the maximum existing and planned operating capacity and their current average throughput. You can find the full survey questions on the survey template available on our website. And if you would like to conduct a survey of your own of a facility located in your own jurisdiction, you'd be happy to use one of our forms that are available there. Next slide, please. For edible food recovery, through our year of research, we found a total of over 1,000 known food recovery organizations throughout the county. We've collaborated with the City of Los Angeles to conduct capacity assessments at those identified food recovery organizations to get to know more about their food recovery activities and their current capacity, including what type and amount of food they currently accept, and would they be able to take more food donations directly from food generating businesses, as SB 1383 now requires businesses to do. As of today, we have successfully completed 325 capacity assessment surveys, and we are continuing to assess the capacity of the remaining food recovery orgs on the list and conduct site visits if needed. For the next step, the county plans to develop a centralized database to store all of the known food recovery organizations throughout the county for all the cities to utilize, access, and update as needed. It will also include an interactive map that'll help easily locate those organizations in your jurisdiction or nearby. Next slide, please. So here's examples of some of the capacity survey assessment surveys and outreach materials we've developed for both commercial food generators and food recovery orgs. And these materials are available on our website. We'd like to share all these materials as templates for the cities to modify and use. And hopefully, you'll find these of value and prevent any duplicate work. So we'll be around later to answer any questions related to organic waste capacity planning and reporting and edible food recovery and reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, so in the sanitation district's role to play in this is that we have the existing infrastructure that can help you, cities, jurisdictions comply. We have our Point of Hills material recovery facility that was built in 2005. It can handle up to 4,000 tons per day of solid waste. And then on the right, at our largest wastewater treatment plant, we have a number of anaerobic digesters that can digest the food waste or in completely sealed containers and capture that biogas and turn it into energy. So our food waste recycling program has several steps, but the key points, the two key entry points are unprocessed food waste. We can take unprocessed food waste. We can either take it at our Point of Hills material recovery facility, which I'll show you more of, or we can also take it at our Shoal Canyon landfill. Starting January of this month, we've been taking food waste commingled with green waste at Shoal Canyon, as well as the Point of Hills material recovery facility, provided the food waste is in a bag. So we can take unprocessed food waste at the Point of Hills MRF or Shoal Canyon landfill. We also can take what we call food waste slurry, and that would be taken at our joint water pollution control plant and go right into our anaerobic digesters to produce biogas, electricity, heat, vehicle fuel, and biomethane. And then what's left over after the anaerobic digestion process, we pull that out and we fertilize, we generate compost with that. Our program has been in place for over 6 years, and it's a pretty mature program. And we just added the new step, which is the combined food waste, green waste that we can accept. So source separated food waste, just step you through the cycle. Typically we've been getting it from restaurants and grocery stores. And now, as I said, we can also take source separated food waste if it's commingled with green waste, provided it's in a bag, because then we'll separate out the food waste. The hauler will come to our Point of Hills material recovery facility here. They'll stop at the scale, they'll pay a tipping fee. Then they go inside the Point of Hills MRF material recovery facility. This facility was built in 2005. It has an automated sorting line to help us remove plastics and papers and so on. But it's a pretty flexible facility that once we decide we need to recover, or there's a value in recovering something, we can adjust to that. So food waste would come in to this Point of Hills material recovery facility. And to the right of this image is where we're processing the food waste into a slurry. We have what we call a DOTA system. The food waste will be put into a hopper, then it goes into a bioseparator that produces food waste slurry that we store in a tank. And give you a little taste of what it's like in the Point of Hills material recovery facility. Here's food waste going into the hopper. And notice we're taking, the food waste needs to be about 90%. We can take as much as 10% of contamination. So the food waste may be in bags and so on. And this hopper feeds it into these bioseparators that separate the organic, the digestible organic material from the plastic, the paper, the glass that may be here. And this is the reject from that process. And then we have a second bioseparator that separates the food waste from the finer particles. And then we get the food waste slurry. This is what we want. It needs to be pumpable, it has 20 different parameters we're looking for. And then we pump that into a tanker truck. See one of the truck drivers, he's filling up the tanker truck, and in his hand, he has a sample that that we will also take and analyze to make sure whatever we're putting in the anaerobic digesters don't upset our operations at the joint plant. So that truck, our Point of Hills MRF is at the 605 and the 60 in the City of Industry. Then this is the food waste slurry is trucked over to our joint water pollution control plant in Carson. And here's one of our slurry receiving stations. We offload to that slurry receiving station. And then we feed that food waste slurry into one of our anaerobic digesters. And we mix the food waste slurry with the wastewater solid. So it's about 90-10, 90% food wastewater solids by volume, 10% food waste by volume. And under anaerobic conditions where microorganisms that live in an oxygen-free environment break down the material, produce methane, CO2, and then we harvest that. And we take that biogas, most of that goes to what we call our total energy power plant, and it produces 20 megawatts of energy that powers our joint water pollution control plant. As we get more food waste, we're producing more biogas. So what we've done recently, we built a pipeline, and you can see the digesters on the left under Figueroa to an existing compressed gas fueling station at the intersection of Figueroa and Sepulveda. So we pipe that biogas over here. It has a biogas conditioning system that you see highlighted here that takes that biogas from about 60% methane to over 90% methane, which makes it renewable fuel. And then it's dispensed here at the fueling station at the intersection of Sepulveda and Figueroa. And I guess a point I want to make is that part of SB 1383 is that there are procurement requirements. So, and Kara can talk more about that, but this is open, this fueling station is open for our vehicle, but for your city's vehicle, you can fuel up there, and that goes towards your procurement requirements in terms of utilizing recycled material, organic material for your various cities. The stuff that's left over from the digester, it has a lot of water in it. So we pull it out, we put it through centrifuges that you see here. And these centrifuges spin the material and increase and reduce the water concentration, producing what we call biosolids cake that you see here. And this is at the joint plant in Carson. This biosolids cake, we then take it off site and we compost with agricultural waste to create a soil amendment. Currently at the joint plant in Carson, joint water pollution control plant, we're processing about 250 tons of food waste slurry. And you can see a number of haulers. We can process up to 600 tons per day of food waste slurry. And as we get more and more food waste, we're going to continue to produce vehicle fuel. We'll also generate electricity. We have a number of EV charging stations at the joint plant, and some of that could go into the EV charging station. And down the road, this fuel could also go into the natural gas pipeline. So that's a pretty quick overview of what we have to offer in terms of existing infrastructure. If you need, we're going to take questions now, but if you have need to contact folks at CalRecycle, you have other questions that we can't get to today, here's some contact information. And with that, we will take questions. Genesis, do we have any questions?
Hi, yeah, we do. And I will be putting up that contact information in the chat while we answer those. So our first question we have here from Patricia Baker. I think this would be for Eric from Public Works. So Patricia says, I'm a resident of unincorporated LA County. My trash collector advised that food waste should not be bagged when put in the green waste bin. Why are there conflicting directives, since this doesn't match what was mentioned in the webinar?
Yes. Hi, Ms. Baker. This is Eric again from LA County. And so from what I understand, each hauler and each facility that they go to has a slightly different protocols, let's say. And so, for example, the one that sanitation described is one where they requested that the food waste be bagged separately. But I've heard of a couple of different types of scenarios here. And so our best advice is to follow the recommendations that were provided by your local hauler, because they know where they're planning to take this stuff to and what that facility can handle and what they prefer. So that's our best advice for that one, because each, it's very complicated, but there's a lot of different facilities and a lot of different haulers, and it's a big network to get this done. So I hope that answers your question.
Perfect, Eric. And while I have you here, John Signo asked, does this apply to residential uses or is this for restaurants only?
And so it does apply. Residents will be provided some form of organic waste collection, recycling. Each jurisdiction, from what I understand, is required. But each jurisdiction is also required to actually reach out to the generators, the restaurants, the large institutions, and get them signed up with the food recovery org. And maybe Jennifer or CalRecycle can speak more on those things too.
Okay, great. We'll move on to the next question. For LA County Public Works, when was the letter sent to jurisdictions and our SWIMS password distributed?
The letter was actually sent out, I believe, the first week of January. It's 120 days. So that's why I believe it was on the 6th of January, but I'm not 100%. Now, it was sent by email to the contacts that we have on file. So it was not paper sent because everybody's not at the office right now too. But please reach out to me if you have not received a letter. Please go ahead and reach out to me and we'll make sure that you get signed up. And we know who you are too, right? Because we have a list of all the jurisdictions and who signed up already. And I believe we just sent another email following up just this week to those that have not yet signed up yet.
Okay, great. And then another follow-up was, how do we find out more information about the portal? So we have details about what needs to be put in there.
See, so on the website, maybe if we can show that first slide, my first slide again. It has the link. It has the link to the website. It's our solid waste information management system called SWIMS. Most jurisdictions are familiar with this because all of the jurisdictions used to submit their disposal data to the county. Now they submit it all directly to the state through the RDRS system. So we're using that existing SWIMS system. And so if you go on there and there's a tab for organic, and there's all kinds of information there specifically for jurisdictions there and how to submit.
Let me try to share that again.
Sure. But for jurisdictions, what we're requesting jurisdictions submit is actually the tools that CalRecycle provided for organic capacity, organic processing, disposal and processing capacity. It's a spreadsheet on CalRecycle's website. We also have it on our website. You just fill it out and you upload it. That's all it is. The same thing for the edible food capacity as well. So this is an example of the letter that was sent out. And if you have any questions at all, you can always just organicsplanning@pw.lacounty.gov, right? And this is only for jurisdictions. This is not for residents. Residents do not have to worry about this. This is only for jurisdictions. So if you have any questions, you can email at us at that address. I think, does the next slide show some of the, have the link? Should have a link to our, oh, okay, this is just where these are the facility, these are the examples. So yeah, we actually have two separate websites. We have a food waste website and we have an organic planning website. And that the SWIMS website is where we're going to upload all the data to the.
If you like, you can also put it in the chat.
Yeah, let me find that link and I'll put it in the chat for everybody.
Okay, perfect. And there's also a few questions about being able to view this webinar at a later time. We will be uploading this to YouTube later, so you can follow us. I'll put our YouTube link in the chat as well. Also, if you registered for this webinar, you will be receiving an email with the recording link on there. All right, so our next question, we have, when will SB 1383 be enforced? I think this is more for Cara.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. So a couple nuances. Currently, we've started enforcement. So my team is currently in the process of reviewing each jurisdiction's implementation, both of the SB 1383 regulations and your readiness, your timeline for implementation. We've been talking to jurisdictions that may be applying for the SB 619 notification process. And we've also been reviewing each jurisdiction's implementation of their mandatory commercial recycling and mandatory commercial organics recycling laws. Why I say all of that is that information is being used by my team and the new enforcement branch at CalRecycle to establish our priorities for conducting compliance evaluations in the coming year. So over this month, the next month, and March 1st, when the notifications will be sent, we will be creating a priority list of jurisdictions. If you're on that priority list, you're probably already going to know from my team. So for example, if you have not fully implemented your mandatory commercial recycling organics program and you don't have a timeline for doing so or a plan, that's going to put you high on our priority list. If you haven't implemented your SB 1383 enforcement ordinance and don't plan to do so by April 1st, my team is aware of that, and that is also going to put you high on the priority list. And what's important in the conversation today, planning for capacity. If you are not actively engaged with LA County team on planning for your organic waste capacity and your edible food recovery capacity, that too is going to make you a high priority. And I say that, I think it's vitally important that, I really appreciated the presentation on the available capacity. We have 350 tons of available capacity right now, with the LA Sand facility, Shoal Canyon landfill, the ability to provide food waste in green waste containers if that food waste is bagged, that's available now. I say that because when we prioritize our compliance evaluations that will start this year, if we're hearing from a jurisdiction that they don't have capacity and they don't know where they're going to get that capacity from, and you haven't been talking to the LA Sand team, that's going to make you a priority for CalRecycle. This is available capacity that we have, and we should be filling up that capacity. So, all of that goes into our mix in determining who is a priority. And so you will be contacted by the enforcement branch if you're receiving a compliance evaluation in the coming year. But my team is conducting that evaluation right now and determining those priorities. So happy to speak offline to any of you. Please reach out to your local assistance team member, and we can talk about your particular situation. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that, Cara. We'll move on to the next question. This is from Victor Caballero. Can you talk about the commercial haulers and their responsibilities? So far, a multi-unit dwelling, there is nothing that has been provided to handle green food compostable waste.
Maybe I'll start. Maybe Eric, I'll turn it to you, or I'm not sure who on the team member, but it would help us to know if you are currently located in LA County unincorporated area versus a city. So if you could throw that in the chat, that would be super helpful, because the LA County team can share with you what is happening right now with implementation for the commercial sector. And over the next 6 months, that program is going to be fully rolled out. So maybe you don't have it right now, but by summer, all of those properties, except for one small area in Antelope Valley, is going to have collection service. So I'll talk a little about just generally, the hauler requirements are related to the jurisdiction in which the hauler is located. So that hauler should be collaborating with the jurisdiction. They should know what the requirements as laid out by that jurisdiction are. Every hauler of organic waste, whether you are a big hauler, a little hauler, whether you are hauling 1-800-GOT-JUNK or you are a commercial franchised hauler, you are required to take organic waste materials to specified facilities. And your jurisdiction in which you operate in is required to authorize you to operate. So that's something you're going to be seeing. If you haven't already been authorized, that authority to haul is going to be happening over the next couple months. So if you haven't already been in communication with your jurisdiction, it's important to do so. There are also reporting requirements from the hauler to the jurisdiction in which you are operating. So it's again important that you are talking to the jurisdiction in which you're operating so you know what those requirements are. I'll turn it to the LA County team to talk about the timeline for fully rolling out the commercial program, which includes multifamily.
Sure, thanks, Kara, and you're right. And to be fair and honest, the county is a very large organization, and so those commercial contracts are actually with a different group. They're kind of with Jennifer's group, but Jennifer only deals primarily with the edible food side. But I've been learning more about these from sitting in on these meetings, and so I'm happy to share that you're right. Most of the commercial districts in the county unincorporated areas will be done by June, from what I understand. And we just passed an ordinance that requires all commercial haulers to, exactly what you said, to divert that organic waste and the food waste. It's required now by all of the commercial haulers. And so moving forward, this is the plan. And as you noted, there are certain areas that are still in a free market kind of system that we're still working out, but that's a whole nother story. And this is just as an example of our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is quite vast, and we have a almost like a giant puzzle of haulers and different networks here. But generally, that's correct. We just had an ordinance passed. We're ready to go in the next couple of months to get all of our commercial franchises up and running in that manner.
Hey, Eric, if someone has a question about, hey, I don't think I have service yet, when am I going to, who should they reach out to as a resident or resident of a multifamily complex, for example?
We have the unincorporated area jurisdiction. They have the Clean LA site. And the Clean LA site, the Clean LA website, and we could put it in the chat. And that's where residents can go and get all their questions answered about their local hauling and rules regarding their trash service for the unincorporated area. And I'll put that here in the chat.
Okay, great. And Eric, while I have you here, next question, does Public Works have a contract in place for a separate collection of organic waste?
I don't think they're separate contracts. Not 100% sure, because like I said, this is a different group does this, but I believe they're the same haulers. They're just required to go ahead and sort it out, or provide an extra bin, whatever they have to do to take care of it.
Okay, and then another question. For the cities that received the low population waiver for solid waste collection, how are they required to report?
Oh, well, reporting to us is just strictly through that website and uploading your information. All we do is collect that information, aggregate it for the county, and report it to CalRecycle. And so on our end, I don't really think that has too much bearing on our requirements at this time. And those are basically CalRecycle exemptions, from what I understand.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share in February, we're going to be holding the statewide webinar for jurisdictions regarding the new reporting requirements. So we'll be covering what's required in the April report. We're also going to cover what the counties have to report in August, which is the information that Eric shared that you have to provide to the county. And then we're also going to be covering what jurisdictions will report in October. So you'll see all those data fields and what's needed. It is exactly what's laid out in the regulations, but you'll see it with the look and feel of the new reporting system. So we'll be getting information out to all jurisdictions, save the date, as well as information about signing up for the webinar. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Hello, this is James with the City of Beverly Hills. I notice your fueling station is partnering with Clean Energy. Will there be procurement opportunities for fuel allocation for fuel usage with other cities to meet procurement target? And I think that's a Will question.
Yeah, I can try to take that one. So yeah, Clean Energy is our contract operator of the facility. The districts own the fueling station at Sepulveda and Figueroa, and currently it is publicly accessible. So any cities or any member of the public can easily come over to our station and fill. We do have plans to expand that station to make it more available to serve Class 8 heavy-duty tractor trailers. But as I understand it, right now, any city is able to come in. There are procurement requirements based off of each jurisdiction or city size. And I believe each city would then have to report the amount and quantity of procured products from 1383 eligible facilities. Now, we don't have any, I guess, contracts or agreements with cities to provide them an allocated amount, but that's something that we can probably entertain, and maybe if we discuss offline, maybe Kara can shine some more light on how cities can report their procurement requirements.
Yeah, well, that was perfect. Thanks so much. So yeah, so for example, to Will's point, if a city, say Fleet goes to the facility, fills up, you need to keep that record. The procurement requirements require some record keeping, as well as reporting on the amount that you procured. And that will be in that annual report, the first one starting in October. So I'll put some information in the chat on that. But I think, again, it's a great opportunity to meet your procurement requirements. To Will's second point, if there is interest in potentially establishing any other kind of relationships and securing a certain amount, that's a great follow-up conversation, because that is going to help you in meeting your procurement target. And then the last thing I'll share, we did just recently post some new question and answers regarding procuring electricity from either, in this case, if LA Sand were to put electricity to the grid, or another in-vessel digestion facility putting going to the grid, there is a pathway that you could also get credit for that. So check that out as well. Thanks, Will. Great job.
Awesome. And while we're on that subject, we have another question of, well, actually, no, never mind. It was answered. Okay, so the next question is, do you accept co-collected food and green waste from the residential stream at the MRF? I think Habib, you can take this one.
Yes, we do. We started this program January 1st. We're proud to provide that to our member cities. Residents, depending on which jurisdiction they're coming from, would have to place their food waste in bags. The bags don't have to be biodegradable. They'll place them into their green waste bin, and the commingled green waste and food waste load is welcome at the Puente Hills MRF. We will go ahead and sort the food waste out of the green waste, and since we have our food waste processing DOTA equipment at the MRF, we process the food waste there to give diversion for the food waste, and then the food waste, and then the green waste will be hauled out for composting.
All right, and then there's another question by Robin Quintana. Are tours available for the Puente Hills MRF and the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant? Wow, I thought you'd never ask. Yes, we do have tours available of both of those facilities and more throughout the year. I will put a link in the chat so that you can see previous tours on our YouTube channel, and then you can also see our upcoming tour schedule for the year. So I'll put those links in the chat. Right now, we're doing virtual tours, but if you have a specific request, you can contact us, and I'll put that link in the chat too. Okay, so next question. This is for Eric. So is there a list with all the due dates for the report deadlines? I think you're muted.
So for right now, the deadline we established is for jurisdictions to submit their data to the county by April 8th. The county is required to submit this data to CalRecycle in August. But this will give us time to perhaps formulate a plan or work with individual cities and see what the data actually shows before we turn around and report back, and potentially even come up with some plans here. But for us, we established the 120 days based on the Article 11 of the of 1383, and it says that once we notify the cities, and then they'll have 120 days to submit the data to the county. And so we just wanted to make sure that we all have time to evaluate the data and work with you guys before we submit. That for now, that's the only one. And then we'll have to, I believe, Kara, a 2025, and then again 5 years after that. So it's this this is going to be a continuing process, as they're going to continue to check in with us on our progress.
Yeah. And just a quick side note, you can also use the raise hand feature to ask any questions. That way it might make it easier to follow up. You can also please use if you want to type it in, please use the Q&A feature that's located at the bottom of your screen or on the top right if you're using a phone or a tablet. And this allows us to better organize the questions as they come in. All right, so another question regarding jurisdictions. So this one from Hung Lee: after we designate a jurisdiction representative, how long will it take to receive the login information?
It's actually really quick. It's actually really quick. Once you send us the information, we put it in the system, and you'll get a system email later that day, business day. Yeah.
Okay, and is it likely that jurisdictions will get relief on timing and enforcement due to the pandemic?
CalRecycle. We're not an enforcement entity. I don't know if that was directed to the county, but we're merely here to report to CalRecycle.
Right.
We're not an enforcement entity there.
Right. Yeah, and Eric, I'm not sure if the question was broader than just taking care of the capacity planning. So maybe it's broader. So last year, legislation was passed, SB 619, which provides some relief for jurisdictions through a notification to comply to CalRecycle. There's an entire process set up. There's a due date of March 1st if you are going to pursue that path. That was a path that was created by Senator Laird to provide relief to jurisdictions as a result of the pandemic. If you have not participated in our 2 past webinars, I'll be happy to put a link in the chat for that information. And please, if you're unsure about that process, you, as a jurisdiction, you should contact your local assistance liaison, and they can take you through that process. We can also set up a follow-up conversation. Thanks.
Okay, and then next question. Will the county or CalRecycle be providing a list of those facilities who meet the high diversion requirements under SB 1383? And then which agency will be certifying the facilities?
Yeah, I'll take it first, and if the county wants to follow up. So the regulations allow for either single unsegregated collection systems or 2 container collection systems. The goal container does have to be processed at a high diversion organic waste processing facility that meets the performance requirements. For the first performance requirements, 50% of the organic waste must be recovered. So in that gray container, there's a lot of stuff in there, and of the organic fraction that's in that gray container, 50% of it has to be recovered. So the regulations provide that in order to establish whether a facility has met that performance target, it takes 4 quarters worth of data. So the facilities are going to be reporting into the recycling and disposal reporting system the measurements that they conduct every quarter. CalRecycle will be looking at that data, and after 4 quarters of data, which will be about spring of 2023, we will be publishing the list of the high diversion organic waste processing facilities on our website. If a jurisdiction is utilizing that, because you will be telling us that in your first reports to CalRecycle this year, if you're using such a facility, we would then be contacting you if that facility is not meeting the performance requirements. But this is what I would suggest. If your jurisdiction and the hauler is using such a facility, you know who you are. You're either offering a single unsegregated collection system or a 2-container collection system. You should be working with your facility now to see how they're doing. They're the ones that know, as they conduct those measurements, if they're hitting the target or not. So you should be working on that this year with your haulers and the facility in which your material is going to. It shouldn't be a surprise to you when CalRecycle, gets its information and we publish the list of facilities. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact your local assistance liaison. And that is the process and the timeline.
Genesis, I just wanted to clarify something and add, when Kara mentioned the haulers, it's important that at the Puente Hills MRF, as the registered haulers that are going to be bringing in the food waste or the food waste and commingled with green waste, it's not the resident themselves that will be bringing it in. So just to clarify the question that I was asked earlier, wasn't sure if they were specifically saying if a resident themselves can bring it in, but it's the registered haulers that will be.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying. So next question. Is the county applying under 619 for unincorporated county? Eric, you're back.
I don't know if I can necessarily speak to that. I know that there's been other discussions and this and that, but like I said, the county is a large animal, and I'm only one part of it. I've been assigned as the one to work directly with the jurisdictions, specifically with Article 11. And oh, we have some further explanation there. Thanks, Kobe.
I can answer that. So we are submitting a request, and Kara alluded to it earlier, for the northern portion of LA County, the Antelope Valley. We are currently operating in an open market system, and because it takes a very long time to establish a new garbage disposal district, will be delayed about a year before we're really implementing the service with a mandatory system through contracts. So we are submitting an application through 619. I would encourage you to reach out to us if you have questions about that process. Particularly, the deadline of March 1st is coming up very quickly, and you do need a resolution adopted by your governing body before you can submit the application. But we're happy to provide information about how we submitted our application. And CalRecycle, I want to say, has been a fantastic partner and helped us a lot in going through that process.
Awesome. All right, so our next question is from Mayor Diana Mahmood. Does SB 1383 permit a hauler to mix organic and non-organic waste when picked up from residential and commercial generators and then transported to another site where it is then sorted?
Yeah, the regulations provide flexibility. Jurisdiction can have a 3+ container system where food waste is kept separate. a separate container, a 3-container system, a 2-container system, and a single unsegregated container system. The key is with those latter two, if you have a 2-container system and a single unsegregated, the gray container of the 2-container system and that single container does have to be processed at a high diversion organic waste processing facility. The jurisdiction is responsible for authorizing its haulers and directing those haulers to take material to specified facilities. So there's that important piece. If you have any follow-up questions, Mayor, I'm sure my team's been talking to your team, but we'd happy to do a follow-up. So please have your staff contact their local assistance liaison, and we can set up a follow-up conversation with you. Thanks so much for the question.
Awesome. Our next question we have from Soriano. For public housing, we are currently working with our contract trash collection company to comply with SB 1383. Do we continue planning with them, or do you suggest exploring with Public Works for compliance?
Hey, Kobe and Eric, I'm not sure how you want to tackle this. I'm assuming that that you're located in the unincorporated county. So that's my assumption. So I do think it's important to continue with your hauler. I know that the LA County team is working closely, communicating to the haulers on the plan with moving forward with the mandatory collection. But Kobe, Eric, is there anything you'd like to add, and could be a follow-up with county staff maybe?
We actually have a number of programs where we're trying to encourage small scale composting, all the way from backyard composting through our smart gardening program, through community composting operations, and all the way up to large scale composting and other facilities as well, anaerobic digestion. So it's something that we know we have to do as much as possible to expand our in-county capacity to meet our demand. So the answer is yes, all of the above, and we're reaching out. We have a database of small scale composting operations that we're trying to expand. And if you have facilities that you're interested in developing or that you're aware of that should be on our radar, definitely reach out to us.
Kobe, just to give you a little nuance, the question they have for public housing, we're currently working with our contract trash collection company to comply. Do we continue planning with the hauler, or do you suggest exploring with your team?
You can actually do both, and we've encouraged our waste haulers to be a resource. Essentially, if you can manage organic waste on site, and you may not be able to manage all of it, but any material that you can manage on site is that much less that you have to pay for managing through a waste hauler. And so we want to encourage that. So definitely you can reach out to both the waste hauler and to us.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Is the county contacting community composters directly for capacity planning, or are jurisdictions expected to provide capacity details for community composters? Eric, I think you're muted.
I can, oh. Sparked in on. Yeah, so we're currently working with the community composters in the unincorporated area, and we'd encourage the jurisdictions to go ahead and continue that within their own communities there. Yeah.
Okay, are these composting facilities, how is compliance being monitored and enforced?
Well, at the facilities themselves, the monitoring will be conducted by the local enforcement agency. They'll be the ones that monitor the quarterly measurements, and that reporting is being done accurately. So just as we have been monitoring facilities through the LEA, local enforcement agency, that will continue under 1383.
Okay, now some questions regarding multifamily housing. Regarding multifamily units, apartments, it usually don't have enough space for recycling bins right now. How are they able to provide space for another bin?
So let me take a crack at answering that. multifamily in particular, I think does pose a challenge, and there's really two pathways for the particular. It might be a multifamily complex that doesn't have the room to develop that. One pathway is to seek an exemption, and the other would be to make use of one of those high waste diversion facilities that can take the commingled material in one or two bins and separate the organic waste. And this is something that, if you're the unincorporated areas, our waste hauler will be reaching out to you to discuss those different options, and we're there to provide additional assistance as well.
Okay, and what can you do if your waste hauler, what can you do if it's been challenging to get any implementation plans from your waste hauler?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this question is from a jurisdiction or related to the unincorporated area. So I'll tackle it if you're a jurisdiction, and then maybe with LA County team, you can tackle if this is located in the county. A jurisdiction is required to pass an enforcement ordinance that covers the 1383 requirements. This is important because whether or not you have the ability to enforce through your existing franchise agreement or contracts, depending upon what mechanism you have, it's also vitally important that if you need to, through that enforcement ordinance. The key is jurisdictions are required to ensure that their haulers are complying with the requirements in the regulations for collection. So it's incumbent upon the jurisdiction to utilize your enforcement authority, whether that's through your franchise agreement, your permit, or through your new 1383 enforcement ordinance, because ultimately the jurisdiction is held responsible by CalRecycle. You're not able to say, well, my hauler didn't do it. CalRecycle is going to be coming to the jurisdiction, and you're the one that's responsible. So in general, that's how jurisdictions, they should be monitoring their haulers, authorizing their haulers, receiving the necessary reports from the haulers, ensuring that the haulers are complying with the requirements that the city has laid out. And I'll turn to LA County in case it's related to LA County haulers.
And it was for a city of Pasadena.
Ah,
They
perfect. There you go. And if you want, please follow up with your LAMD liaison. We can have a follow-up conversation. Thanks, Genesis.
Genesis, before we go, and I just want to just thank Kara, because she has to leave at 10, as well as Will. They have other SB 1383 obligations at 10 sharp. I don't know if anyone else has to leave at 10, but it seems like we have still a lot of questions, don't we, Genesis? So
yeah, we have quite a few.
And I'm happy afterwards, if circle back to me, Genesis Bustle, you want me to put in writing any follow-ups to any of the questions that are not able to be answered. I'll stay on as long as I can. Thanks so much for having us.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You've been awesome. Thank you so much.
So while you're still here, so is there any compliance exception to SB 1383?
That's a pretty broad and general question. And I'm not exactly sure. I'd probably need a little bit more detail. But the way that the enforcement process works is that CalRecycle will be conducting a compliance evaluation of each and every jurisdiction. This won't happen every year. As I mentioned earlier, we will be prioritizing in 2022 the jurisdictions we will conduct compliance evaluations on. As we conduct that compliance evaluation, we'll be looking at all of the programmatic requirements, and if there is a violation, we're going to want to understand why there is a violation. It could be that it's a violation that can be corrected in a short amount of time, or it may be something that we need to put the jurisdiction on a corrective action plan because they need a longer amount of time. So it really depends on what the violation is, what the reason is for it. If it's a situation where, maybe there is nothing that the jurisdiction can do, we will be using our discretion to determine whether or not an enforcement action is necessary. So if there's more details to your questions, feel free to circle back and I'll be happy to have a conversation. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. All right, so next question. How can we access biogas for heat and bioelectric And if cities are required to spend more money to incorporate them if needed to meet their procurement target.
Sure, that's a great
That's the last
question.
one for you.
I'll start and then I'll turn it probably back to Will, maybe. In
Sure.
general, we just recently published on our website some new Q&As regarding this question specifically. It lays out a pathway on how you can work with, for example, LACSD or other in-vessel digestion facilities that are putting electricity onto the grid. So it's very laid out. You need to do, those are brand new. And again, we really are trying to help with the market supply and providing jurisdictions as much flexibility as we can in the way that the regulations are constructed for procurement. Will?
Yeah, I know CalRecycle's been busy trying to lay these steps out as well. And so we're trying to stay flexible as well. But in terms of our portfolio, we prioritize getting transportation fuel out onto the market first. As we start expanding and receiving more food waste, as a result, we'll start producing more biogas. Now, Basil mentioned that we have a total energy facility. The plant really was designed to produce enough biogas in the first place to provide enough energy for its own use. And any additional biogas that we receive from food waste can then be utilized either to produce renewable natural gas, electricity, and or vehicle fuel. So as we start expanding our program, if we receive and start to receive more and more food waste to produce this biogas, we will be evaluating whether or not we want to push it into the pipeline to produce renewable natural gas for cities and jurisdictions to be able to procure, or potentially electricity onto the grid. But as of right now, we're focusing all of our additional biogas to transportation fuel.
Okay. Now, thank you. Now moving on to the bins. And I think we have a few questions left. So if you think of anything, put it in the chat. All right, so next question. Are we required to provide bins for our residents for multi-dwelling units? Eric? You're muted. Or Kobe.
So, I believe from what I understand, that each jurisdiction has a range of tools that are available to basically meet the requirements. And so, like Kobe said before, if space is a limitation, there may be other alternatives to meeting this requirement, and depending on what facilities the haulers take it to. The way we've done it is, I believe we kind of put it on our haulers to kind of figure out what exactly they're going to do to meet the requirements here.
And when can residents, I know this varies, you probably answered a portion. When can residents expect to receive these containers? And are there any specific bags that they need to use?
Yeah. Again, I think that just depends on which jurisdiction they're in and which hauler they're working with and what the specific requirements of that hauler have. Like I said, they have preferred facilities that they're working with, and they have an idea of where these places are going to go and what the requirements are for those facilities.
I do expect for most residents, there's not really going to be a change. Either they'll be using a 1 or 2 bin system, or even a 3 bin system where the food waste is added to the green waste bin. And in most cases, I think they're not necessarily going to ask you to put it in a bag separately. So it really is going to be a case-by-case basis. And that's why in all of our communication, we really emphasize that you need to look for what your jurisdiction and what your waste hauler is telling you to do with that food waste in order to comply.
Okay, and then Habib, for the MRF, or is there specific kind of bags that that the food waste needs to be brought in?
No, there's no requirements on the type of bags. We've had questions, do they have to be biodegradable? Like I mentioned earlier, any bag is fine to be placed into their green waste bin if it's coming to the Pony Hills MRF.
Okay, great.
So I just wanted to add, I think it's so awesome that that option exists, because we've heard from a lot of residents and businesses. They're like, what do I do with this food waste? They're all worried about not being able to bag it. And so this is one facility that can handle bags. And I just think it's a great option for jurisdictions to think about, because it really is going to deal with some of those fears or concerns that businesses and residents have. So kudos to LA County and LA SAN.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Yeah, we wanted to be flexible to be able to promote the SB 1383 as much as possible and encourage more of the food waste to be placed in the green waste bins.
And then while I have you here, paper bags, are they also okay? Just got a follow-up question. Have you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay, so okay, someone else just asked if the food waste can be wrapped in newspaper.
So we prefer that the bag be sealable. We want to try to avoid contaminating the green waste as much as possible. So the answer is no on the newspaper. And going back to the paper bag, it has to be sealed as much as possible. Obviously, paper bags can rip a lot easier than plastic bags. So if we tend to see more of an issue of that, then we might have to restrict that paper bags.
Okay, and next question, are there any concerns about the smell and pest control?
I'll start and then LA County team can weigh in. We have a number of jurisdictions and facilities that have been collecting food waste from residents, from businesses, and facilities that have been processing this material. When managed properly, there really aren't issues. Again, in jurisdictions that have been doing this, residential and commercial, it's been working really well. We do plan, CalRecycle is going to be conducting a statewide education campaign for residents, targeting various communities. And we do plan to share best management practices on what these jurisdictions that have had a lot of experience implementing food waste collection with green waste programs and what they're doing. So stay tuned for those best management practices. I think that'll be really helpful for jurisdictions to get out to their residents and businesses to kind of get over the fear of this new thing. But I think you'll find that just like with your trash now, it is just a different way, a different place that you put those materials, but it doesn't create a bunch of new issues if you're properly managing your whole system.
I think that's well said. The big thing I remind residents, especially when they have that concern, is it's the same material and you're just placing it in one bin versus another. And if you're managing it right, it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple questions left. This one's from Mocha Brown. Will independent small level biodigesters and composting facilities be allowed by businesses or institutions, and who will be governing those?
Kobe, do you want to cover that for LA County, and then I can speak generally?
So in terms of allowed, it's more than that. I would say it's encouraged. Again, back to my comments earlier, we really want to have as many different options, and the same thing in terms of the sanitation districts having this really fantastic program that they've expanded in a lot of different ways to make it easier to get that organic waste out of our waste stream. In terms of the development, it really will be local permitting. So if you're in the unincorporated areas, our regional planning department will be the lead in terms of setting up their permits for that, but we would probably be engaged as well. And you're welcome to reach out to us and get the process started. We'll help you to navigate that process. If you're in a city, reach out to your local city planning department and they'll help you.
Okay, and we have our final question. So when do haulers have, until when do haulers have to comply? Save the best for last.
Well, I'll start and then Kobe can talk about if this is related to the unincorporated county. So jurisdictions are required starting January 1 of this year to implement this new regulation. So if you're a hauler operating in a city, you should be working with your city regarding the plans for implementation. As I mentioned, there will be some cities that are going to submit a SB 619 request to CalRecycle, giving them a bit more time for complying. Some jurisdictions are phasing in over the next 6 months their mandatory commercial organics recycling program. So you could have that situation. So again, haulers really should be working closely with their cities. The cities in turn are really communicating with their local assistance liaison about their particular situation and their particular timeline. Kobe, anything you want to say about the LA County area?
It's more complicated than it probably should be, but we have, 27 different residential contracts. We're creating a new exclusive commercial franchise system, and we're rolling out those contracts. And then I mentioned earlier our 4 new garbage disposal districts. So if you're a hauler working with LA County, you already have worked with us to amend your existing contracts. And for those new areas that we're forming, there'll be an RFP issued. And some of you are already responding to those that already have those new requirements in place, and there's a schedule associated. So each contract will have a specific date in mind for when you need to start implementing. Many of them we already began in this month to implement organic waste collection.
Okay, great. And that was our last question for the day. If you have any more, you can email us. And with that, I will leave it to Basil for closing remarks.
Right. Just thank you, Kara and CalRecycle and Eric and Kobe and Jennifer, Will and Abib. Thank you for participating in this. And for the folks out there, really heartfelt thank you for participating in this, and the conversation continues. Hopefully you have all our contact information that you can follow up and get into the nitty-gritty so we all can do our part in reducing greenhouse gases in California. With that, have a great, wonderful day. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.